Hi everybody, I'm Jason Klom. I'm the host of the Comedy on Vinyl podcast. You can find us on iTunes, you can find us at comedyonvinyl.com, stolendress.com. I'm listening to a comedy album a day for all of 2017. As you've heard me say in the last several episodes, I am still playing catch up. It seems every time I check I'm about 20 albums behind. But I am continuing to listen to them, and as you can see, I'm putting up, that doesn't tell you anything, that's just a screen. But I'm rendering a video. I'm doing video episodes of every audio episode I do now, without clips. They're going up on YouTube, so you can actually check out the podcast from now on. We'll also be on YouTube. We'll put some back episodes up. But anyway, I'm doing albums, let's see, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, and 82. These are all going to be going up in, I'm doing them all in one chunk. I hate to do it that way, but I'm playing catch up. At some point we'll be back to one album per episode. But for now, as I do all these other projects, we'll be putting these up. So, this is Sophie Tucker in person for adults only. This one I think I mentioned before previously. Let me check. I was correct. This is, the reason this one was exciting to me is that it's very likely actually signed by Sophie Tucker. I have not checked out her autograph the same way I did with my Carol Channing one to confirm that my Carol Channing album is indeed signed. This is probably signed, but it was just very inexpensive. It was only $2 at Amoeba Records here in LA. I actually just picked up some new stuff at Amoeba in Berkeley, which we'll be talking about down the line. This is another Sophie Tucker album. Now, the last one I listened to, I definitely talked about how she, there's some kind of canned laughter and stuff. But this one doesn't seem to have that. This one actually seemed to be live, and it's a ton of fun. The same kind of thing with the last one, except, you know, again, it's for adults only, whatever, but very tame by our standards. And let me check one thing. Yeah, I wanted to check my notes. The one thing about this that stood out to me is that this is like early body positivity, and I don't know how old these songs are that she's performing here. And of course, the year's never on the damn record, but 50s, late 50s, early 60s, probably late 50s. But she just, there's one line where she says the best beef has a little fat in it. And it's all about, like, just appreciate yourself, love yourself, enjoy the fact that you look the way you do, and don't let anybody judge it. She just talks about how she's the hottest thing in the room, and you buy it. Like, why would you not? That kind of confidence is the ultimate presentation of who you are, and I think it's great. It's a fun album. Again, it's talk singy, you know, so that's what you can expect. Talk singy, kind of a little bit more like later Rusty Warren albums are. I would have loved to hear Sophie Tucker in her prime. I'm sure those albums exist, or those recordings exist, but I'm kind of going backwards or throughout these different people's careers, so it gets a little thrown, including with Rusty. Like tonight, for instance, I'm talking about her final album, which is insane to me because, you know, I still haven't gone through all of them, but it's okay. Next is Anna Russell Sings, question mark. That's an insane picture. Anna Russell, if you want to condense it, did Goofy singing. Now this, the Goofy singing, you really have to be more familiar with the stuff she is either parodying or intentionally ruining. You can tell she's obviously a great singer, but she likes to screw with the form, and a lot of the things that she's talking about in terms of music in general went way above my head. The jokes are definitely landing with the audience. So this is a musically literate audience that is loving her shit. It's not exactly accessible to me. However, and it's not, you know, it did make me laugh because I totally missed it. This one, however, more accessible. Maybe I'm a Philistine, but this is Anna Russell Sings, exclamation point, again, question mark. Now this one, so there's side one is an analysis of the Rings of the Nibelungs, and side two is introduction to the concert and how to write your own Gilbert and Sullivan opera. You don't need as much. It's simple, you know. It's 2 bits really. It's 3 bits, but it's really 2. She tells you the story of the ring, and she does it in a very funny way, in a very English way. And on side 2, how to write your own Gilbert and Sullivan opera, she comes up with her own story, which I'm sure she's pre-planned, of course, and obviously, because then she comes up with songs that match. She said every Gilbert and Sullivan opera has this, this, and this, and this, and this is how they would apply to the story that I'm telling you. And it's fun, and it gave me a few laughs, and I enjoyed it because guess what? I understood, for the most part, what was going on. very good storyteller. It's just one of those things where you think you have to have specific knowledge for the first album to completely get it, other than to understand the fact she's making fun of the pretentious and the pompous. That's easy enough to get, but you want, personally, I want a little more investment in terms of knowing what the hell is going on. The next one is, and by the way, I'm still doing only women because I'm playing catch up for all of March, which is Women's History Month. So I'm still doing at least 31 women comedy albums. This is Dame Edith Evans' 18th Century Comedy Album. Okay, there's a number of reasons I picked it up. Number one, it's a woman. Number two, it's called, I rarely do see a comedy album with comedy album in the title, so I was curious. It seemed like it might be a little facetious, having a little bit of fun. There is, it pulls out with this nice little dowel type thingy. It's binding, reverse binding. And then there are descriptions, synopsis of the plays in here. These are scenes from plays. These plays are very 18th century, very 1700s, because so dry, so heavily, the language is so florid and so completely out of my range. These are plays that I might enjoy reading, might enjoy even seeing, but hearing bits of these, or bitlets, as Stephen Fry might call them, woof, do they ever knock over my head. I'm just lost. I also got it because I was interested because John Gielgud is on here as well, and it's kind of fun to listen to a young John Gielgud. Be funny, I assume. Again, I'm pretty exposed to some older stuff. I can usually tell through context what's going on, and while I can tell what's going on, it's not particularly funny to me. These were comedies at the time. It's the same way some of Shakespeare's comedies maybe aren't all that funny to some people now. Although I will say, Independent Shakespeare Company here in LA, they're very good at playing to a plebe like myself, and they make me laugh. Okay, now this is, actually let me make sure this is the right one. One second. I was right, it is the right one. I lied, it is not her final album, second to last album. If it was her last album, it would be a hell of a way to go out. Knockers Up 76. This is just, it's so good, and it's so much of Rusty being just accepting of this of this new world that's so fond of love as an ethos, and just again talking about her typical stuff, you know, and still doing the Knockers Up Brigade and the Knockers Up March, that is, and still doing her typical Rusty stuff. But I don't know. As her albums go on, they get more and more delightful. Sorry, I don't know where I was. I wanted to look at some of my notes. It's interesting because there's no tracks listed. Side 1 is just Rusty Lays It on the Line, which is the name of another of her albums, and side 2 is Am I Getting Old? And she actually starts this out talking about masturbation, which is not something she really brings up before. Which, not that much anyway, and just talking about basically how boys were kind of treated like, oh, look, that's your special, precious little thing, and girls will say, don't look at it, if you touch that, it'll turn to stone. There's a lot of stuff like that. Again, it talks about repression, and how mothers in this period, again, this is actually recorded in 75, how mothers in this day and age, she's very happy, or much more open with their kids. It's incredibly sweet. She talks a lot about her early sexual experiences, talks about getting a hickey for the first time, and how she woke up the next day a star, is how she puts it. This one's dense. I had to take a lot of notes, so I apologize that I'm not giving you the best, I'm not condensing it the best. It deserves its own episode, and maybe down the line I will do it. But it's so much fun, and it does end with a song called Am I Getting Old? And it's just, it's a reflection on how times have changed, but not in an old-timey person way. It's just like, it's very much like, it's a celebration of aging in a nice way. But what's funny is at the end when she says, when I'm getting old, am I getting old? Somebody in the audience says, no, like they're like, no, fuck no. Like you're just so, she's just, I don't know. It's one of her deeper albums, and I really like it. I like her albums as they go on, because she can be mixing stuff where she's talking about, you know, giving 10 synonyms for penis, and then at the end doing this very lovely thing where she just reminds you, you know, don't forget, one way or another, you know, love is the most important thing in the world, and that sex is part of that, and all these things are healthy, and you should want to do these things, and you should want to be a good person. I don't know. I just love every one of Rusty's albums. Next one, this is one I've heard before, but it's been a while since I gave it a listen, and that's Improvisations to Music by Mike Nichols and Elaine May. And I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think we've covered this one on the Comedy on Vinyl podcast. Most of these we haven't, but I'm surprised because we have covered other Nichols and May on the Comedy on Vinyl podcast. But this is just, is it their first? I'm sorry, I apologize. Either way, it's just, if you've never heard Mike Nichols and Elaine May, I'm less familiar with this one, even though I think I probably heard it first as a kid. This was one of the first albums I had, but I didn't re-listen to it as much because I didn't know that improv was going to be a thing for me. God, there's just so much sensitivity and energy in their improv. Sensitivity, but also like there's a New York attitude about it. So, you know, much as as Elaine May's characters might be, sometimes they sound a little bit like dreamers. They sound a bit like they're lost, and that's not always what it is, but they sound a little bit that way, and his characters seem a bit confused and a bit repressed. Again, that's not all of his characters, but it's what comes across in their voices. Much as those might be sensitive portrayals, sometimes at the same time there's this little bit of New York attitude, this little bit of cynicism that goes along with everything they do. You know, they have these different... one second. Sorry, it was driving me crazy. Yes, it's their first album, 1958. There's this whole bit at the beginning of the album where a boss is taking a secretary out to dinner or out to drinks and flirting with her and telling her how good she is at the Mimeo machine, which is an old-fashioned pre-Xerox machine. It was those purple things you might have seen in the 80s, 70s, 80s as well. But it's those kind of characters. It's very cynical. It is, but at the same time, it's also sweet that these two sad, pathetic characters are together. This one character who's bad at picking up women, and this one character who's bad at being picked up. Like she's good at being picked up. She's very, you know, she'll fall for it. But that's because she wants to be loved. And these things all came out of improv, and they're a delight. I recommend any Mike Nichols and Elaine May. Of course, I mean, who wouldn't? Okay, and this is the first of two. I'm not talking about the second one here, but Belle Barth, If I Embarrass You, Tell Your Friends. Belle Barth is, I would say, a midway between, I mean, in terms chronologically, but also material-wise, between Sophie Tucker and Rusty Warren. She's also one of these people who talks about her younger years, a bit like Sophie Tucker, and about how, how she used to be able to belt, and she sings. She's got kind of a goofy, I would consider it kind of a goofy voice in terms of singing, but she's clearly performing in these small clubs, being very filthy, and working so much Yiddish into her act that I got lost. Like, I love Yiddish as a tool in a lot of comedy. I like figuring it out, looking it up. She goes so fast with some of her Yiddish that I'm just completely lost. But it's fun. I mean, her attitudes, again, about sex are incredibly... There are two ways, there are two kind of schools in terms of, this is the stuff that she never would have had a chance of getting on TV. You know, she never would have had a chance, that is to say, like, not in a big way. She never would have had a chance in more mainstream clubs just because she was just filthy, but that's also what was accepted for her. She was allowed to do that. Belle Barth had her career based on that, but I feel like Rusty Warren walked a line where I don't think she was even all that dirty for her time, especially when Belle Barth was still performing at the time, and being a lot filthier. But Rusty Warren had this following based on the albums, but still that could not elevate her to TV star, couldn't get her in movies, etc. So it's just this weird thing where Belle Barth could comfortably be in this particular area of comedy where being dirty, being blue was her thing, and maybe it's because it's easier to find. Clearly she's making jokes about, bodily fluids and just sex, and, still not much compared to today, but if you compare to the other stuff, pretty risque. But still goofy, and very lighthearted and very sweet, very positive, I think. Again, when this stuff's coming out in Yiddish that I just can't understand, then I really can't comment on it. But yeah, I think she was comfortably in this position. That's a fun noise. Comfortably in this position where she could just work blue, and that was her career. She could make a career off of that. Rusty did the same thing, but I feel like she was just this close to being able to turn that into something that got her on TV, and she was a few years away from. She didn't have her like clean period. She didn't have a period where she was TV friendly like a Lenny Bruce. Now that said, Lenny Bruce could get on TV and then go be filthy because he was a dude. But Rusty didn't have that opportunity. None of these women have that opportunity. That you get kind of relegated to being a certain type of comedian because you're a woman. Whereas with a dude, it's like, well, a dude can you adapt your stuff for TV? Whereas women's like, oh, she's a filthy woman. That's what she does. Not assuming that these are professionals. Not assuming that these are performers who adapt their stuff every night to a new audience the same way as any other comedian. You know, America is very Puritan. That's the root of it. That's what happens, and it sucks. But it's fun to listen to these, I would give any of these a listen again, except for maybe 18th Century Comedy album or the first Anna Russell album. The rest of these are totally fun. They're a lot of fun. I definitely like Nichols and May and Rusty's. That was really loud. Are definitely repeatable. Well, thank you guys for watching. Again, I'm playing catch up. I apologize for not doing these every day. I will be caught up soon, I hope, after past the quarter year mark, third of the year mark, maybe by 120 I'll be caught up. But yeah. Check us out, iTunes, all that good stuff. StolenDress.com is where all my podcasts are. I should tell you, that's one of if you go to StolenDress.com, you'll see the other stuff I'm working on. I have a podcast called Dana J's Comedy Hour, my best friend. I have a podcast about news radio called Dispatches from Fort Awesome with my buddy Alan Rickert. And I'm also working on a movie that we shot all of last year, and I have to shoot a bunch of new stuff this year, which is one of the things that's kind of slowing me down in terms of getting the records done. So that is why this is happening a little less frequently. But there you are. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, have a good thing.